I'm here asking you to join me on a trip. Not just any trip, but a journey. And not just any journey, but what classical literature calls the hero's journey. Now, the hero's journey has some specific parts to it. The story opens with a hero, but the hero doesn't feel particularly heroic. In fact, the hero feels very ordinary, maybe less than ordinary, boring even. Then one day a stranger appears to the hero and gives him a mission or a quest. Maybe he's called to restore the true king to his throne. Or she's called to find a great treasure or to rescue someone who's been lost or captured. Our hero protests that she's not capable, much less worthy to be sent on something so important. But there's no choice. It has to be done. So along the way, our hero finds traveling companions and allies. Sometimes a guide will come to lead the way. And along the road they find doubts, they face obstacles, but together they find ways to overcome them. They also find adventure and wonder. They discover strengths and abilities that they didn't realize that they had. And like any great story, they find love. You can think of Moses, who was working for his father-in-law when he was called to lead his people out of slavery. Or you can think of David, a young shepherd who was called to unite the kingdom. Or of Mary, a poor teenage girl who was called to be the mother of God. All three of them protested that they weren't worthy, but all three of them accomplished their mission. So you want to come along? Do you sometimes feel ordinary or bored? Would you like some adventure, wonder, or some more love in your life? And that's really not a fair question, because the fact that you're sitting here tells me that you want to join us on this journey. As a matter of fact, many of you have been on this journey for years. A few of you may just be starting out for the first time, and some of you are ready to be sent for the first time again. You see, this journey is called the Mass. In fact, our word Mass comes from the Latin word missa, which means sent. You see, at every Mass, we face doubt about our worthiness. At every Mass, we find fellow traveling companions. At every Mass, we find awe and wonder. At every Mass, we find strength. And at every Mass, we find real love. At every Mass, we are sent on a mission. Now, does it surprise you that when we're at Mass, we're on a journey of awe and wonder? Do you find Mass so mysterious that it's confusing? Maybe so confusing that it becomes tedious. I know when I first started coming to Mass in my 30s, it was confusing for me. I had no idea how or when I was supposed to stand, sit, or kneel, much less why. Now, maybe you've mastered the how and the when, but you're not sure the why. You become so anxious about making the right steps that you don't realize that we're dancing, or so confused by the words that you don't hear the song. Have you been coming to Mass so often and for so long that the songs have faded until you don't even notice that some of the lyrics have changed? That the movements and the timings have been so locked into your muscle memory that you're still doing the same dance that you learned in the 3rd grade. Like a daily commuter, you've taken this route so often you don't notice the landscape anymore. We can get so locked into trying to say the exact words or use the perfect posture at the right time that we'll lose sight of what we're really here for. Reminds me of a friend of mine, Charlie O'Loughlin from Modesto. He's this Irish as Paddy's pig. Now, Charlie was, when he was in minor seminary back in the 40s. Minor seminary is basically a high school or a prep school for boys that are preparing for the priesthood. And keep in mind that in the 40s, most of the prayers were in Latin. He told me that as a teenager, he thought that maybe the reason God wasn't answering his prayers was because he wasn't pronouncing the Latin correctly because of his Irish accent. So it's with that in mind that this past June, Pope Francis issued a letter asking the church to renew its formation on the liturgy for the people, for us. And he specifically urged us to focus on transformation, not simply information. To remind us that Mass is more than specific words in a set script and particular postures, but to remind us that it's at Mass that we are in the awesome presence of a living God. It's a time to fall in love with God. So for the next few weeks, we're going to be exploring the Mass. I'll be your guide. Now, if you've ever been on a trip with a tour guide, maybe in a museum, or perhaps you've done it in a A national park where somebody will guide you along the way, maybe a wine trip where somebody will explain the grapes and how the wine is made, maybe even whale watching, where you have a naturalist that will explain this is the whale, this is what they're doing. So I'm going to be like that. I'm going to be your guide. I'm going to be the naturalist, but not the captain, because a good guide is going to focus on the whale, but not on himself. So we'll be taking a slow walk through the Mass. We'll stop along the way at important landmarks. We'll learn more about the whys and the whats, but not necessarily all the hows, because we don't want the ritual to become more important than the rite. So are you ready for an adventure? You want to find friends and traveling companions? Would you like to find new strengths and abilities that you didn't realize that you had? Are you ready for the journey? Are you ready to fall in love with God? So as we celebrate Mass today, notice how the words, music, and even our postures take us on a journey of adventure and love.